Put yourself in the shoes of an average North Korean citizen. After finishing a grueling shift at your local factory, you head home for a bit of rest and relaxation. But while you kick back and put on a smuggled copy of The Interview, you hear a loud noise coming from the front door. You stand up and move toward the door, but before you can open it, several state security soldiers smash down the door and come pouring in. Before you can run, they tackle and arrest you for one of the worst crimes you can commit in North Korea. Enjoying a piece of media not made in the best Korea. What comes next? The infamous re-education camp, of course. Buckle in because we're about to go through what would happen if you were caught and sent to one of North Korea's infamous camps. Journey to the camp. As you wake up at dawn with the rest of your family, you start the day by having breakfast and watching sunrise. It's a cool, crisp May morning, which means it's the perfect day to begin planting crops for the summer harvest. After breakfast, you get dressed for work and head out to tend to the fields by your home. But as soon as you walk outside your house, something catches your eye. A military truck and a van are winding down the dirt road leading to your home. This is odd, as you always expected to walk to work, and the farm would never send a vehicle for you. As the truck gets closer, you soon realize this is not a ride to work, but something much worse. As the van pulls alongside your home, armed men of the North Korean secret police, called the Boebu, pour out and begin pointing guns in your face. After ordering you and your family to the ground, you are all handcuffed, have bags placed over your heads, and are stuffed into the van. And while you can't see it, soldiers from the truck begin entering your home and throwing all of your belongings into the truck. But you don't know this, since you're just focused on what's going to happen next. After what seems like an hour, the van suddenly stops. You and each of your family members are separated and taken inside a small prison. Here, each one of you is taken to a separate interrogation room, handcuffed to the table, and forced to wait. As you wonder what's going to happen next, you start to think of what they're doing to your family. You hear screams from down the hall. Is that your mother, your brother, your father? You don't know, and you don't dare turn around lest the Boebu are watching you on the camera. Due to the cramped room you're in with no windows, you have no idea how long you've been in there until finally a man in a suit walks through the door. Unlike the younger, malnourished guards in military uniforms, this man is older, fatter, and wearing nice clothes. As soon as he sits down, he begins screaming at you to confess your crimes. However, you don't know what to say since you haven't done anything wrong. You're simply a farmer who works on the collective farm and tends a small plot at home to help feed your family. Though you have heard of other people who have tried to flee, acquired contraband Western goods, or taken on a religion, you've done none of that since you know it would bring you to the attention of the security services. Perplexed, you tell them that you haven't done anything, but that's not good enough. After hours of being beaten, threats made against your family, and promises of a lighter sentence if you confess, you finally give in. You tell them, yes, you are guilty of everything they're accusing you of, to make the beatings and the threats stop. With that, the portly man in the suit pulls a pre-written confession out of his briefcase. He throws it to you and tells you to sign it by affixing your thumbprint to it. You're given no time to read the document or ask any further questions. After signing your confession, the guards take you away to a solitary cell. You have no idea where the rest of your family is or what could have happened to make you end up here. But unknown to you, the truth is you probably didn't do anything wrong at all. This is because in North Korea, there are 3 ways you can get the attention of the Boebu. The first of these is because of what they consider incorrect thinking. This could be any number of things like expressing your faith, speaking out against the government, not being reverent enough of the ideology of the state, or basically anything the secret police officer could construe as disloyalty to the state, which is at the complete discretion of the officer. Another way to find yourself in the situation is because of something you know. For example, in the 1980s and the 1990s, North Korean elites who had been living in the USSR and Eastern Europe were all recalled and sent immediately to concentration camps because DRPK authorities did not want them to tell the others about the fall of communism. A more recent example could be medical personnel who knew the details of any COVID outbreaks in North Korea to prevent that knowledge from getting out to the public. But this last way is the main reason why North Koreans find themselves on the wrong side of the law. Guilt by association, and it was codified into law by Kim Il-sung. Known as the 3 generations of punishment, any person who commits a crime against the state is arrested along with their entire immediate family. Any living mother, father, grandparents, uncles, aunts, siblings, or children are all immediately rounded up and placed into a camp. Worse yet, any children born during captivity are also subjected to a life of imprisonment for the next 2 generations. After arrest, only the great-grandchildren will be allowed out. decades later if they survive. Because guilt by association, thousands of North Koreans every year are arrested under circumstances just like this and brought to concentration camps. But also unknown to them is what part of the camp they go to will decide their fate. In North Korea, there is a place inside prison camps called a special control zone. Those unfortunate enough to wind up here have absolutely no hope of release. They will die in prison. Those not in this zone may be released, but only after years or decades of hard labor, abuse, and neglect. Arrival at the camps. As the van pulls into the camp's front gates, you're startled at how massive the place is. Situated in between mountain ranges, the camp is a sprawling complex, stretching dozens of miles in either direction. Once the van stops, you get out and the guards take off your handcuffs. But as soon as you start walking, one of the guards knocks you to the ground with a rifle butt to the stomach. He tells you that you are nothing but a dog and shall enter the prison like a dog. After crawling on your hands and knees through the prison gates, guards pick you up and tell you and the other new arrivals to march to the registration office. As you walk toward the registration office, you can't help but gaze at the walking dead around you. Men, women, and children of all ages mill about. They march in silence as they head to and from work details, guards flanking them in either direction. You notice that most have clothes made of literal rags or burlap sacks. Many don't even have shoes. Every prisoner you see is emaciated and starving. Even worse is the smell of the place. The stench of body odor, urine, feces, and sweat fills the air. It's worse than any stable you've ever visited. Once at the registration office, the guards are quick and curt. As you're brought into the office, the guards demand each prisoner affix their thumbprint to another document. Again, you're not given time to read the document or understand what it says. But little do you know at the time that this is the acknowledgement of the camp rules and that you will obey them. Failure to comply with any will result in an immediate death sentence. After signing the document, each person is assigned a work duty. In the camps, the slave labor provided by the prisoners supports a wide range of industries: mining, logging, textiles, and animal husbandry, construction, alcohol brewing, porcelain manufacturing, and numerous other industries are all run from inside the sprawling complex. How each person gets assigned their work duties is entirely arbitrary and totally at the discretion of the Bawibu. Once assigned a work duty, a work leader comes to collect each of the new prisoners assigned to them. Work leaders are like the North Korean version of capos during the Holocaust. Picked out for their ruthlessness, they're supposed to motivate prisoners to work harder through fear of violence and intimidation. After being taken into custody of the work leaders, they take you to your living arrangements. Depending on how long you've been there and who you are, will dictate where you go to live. The guards separate the living quarters into what they call villages. Most villages are for single people, but this is in name only, since though you might have had a spouse on the outside, inside you are now single, since you have been separated from your family. The villages are segregated by sex, and the work leaders make it very clear that absolutely no contact is to be made with the opposite sex. Even being in the presence of the opposite gender outside of work could get you killed. After arriving at your village, you'll see that your living quarters are nothing more than a bare concrete house with nothing in it. You're expected to sleep on the floor with nothing to lie on. Fortunately, the guards do come by and bring some of the belongings they took from your house. It's not much, but the few articles of clothing, cookware, and a blanket are literally worth more than gold in here. As soon as the other prisoners see you, they'll want to trade with you for your items. Some offer food, others extra work while on the job site, and other services like cooking or sewing underwear. Because you are starving, you trade your clothes that came in for some old rags and get handed a healthy bowl of gruel made out of cornmeal, cabbage, and salt, the staple diet in the camps. Alone, afraid, exhausted, and still hungry, you try to get a few hours of sleep on the cold concrete slab, surrounded by several dozen other prisoners before work the next morning. Work details in the camp. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the prisoners inside your village rise for work. With no words, they start getting dressed and will begin walking to their work site. Unknown to you, it's far up in the mountains, and it'll take several hours to get there. Work starts at dawn, so they'll need to be ready to go by then. Also unknown to you, you've been assigned one of the deadliest jobs in the whole camp system: mining. In the mountains of North Korea, inmates are expected to mine all types of natural resources, including coal, gold, and rare earth metals. However, coal is by far the most common thing prisoners extract. After spending hours walking up the mountains in almost complete darkness, you finally find your work site. Once everyone arrives, the guards take a muster to ensure all the prisoners make it to work. Even the sickest of prisoners are still expected to work. As you'll soon learn, there are no off days in the camps except New Year's Day, Kim Il-sung's birthday, and Kim Jong-il's birthday. Every other day is a work day. After arriving at work, you find your task is relatively simple but backbreaking. Your only mission in life is now to use a pickaxe and your hands to scrape coal out of the mine. The mine shaft itself is several hundred feet down into the earth with a steep incline. With no lighting, no ventilation, and primitive tools, you hack away at the walls of the mine to scrape the coal out of it. As you do so, imprisoned children come in behind you to pick up the pieces, load them into a cart, and then push them up the shaft. As you work, you start to get tired, and the back-breaking work is exhausting, with the heat inside the tunnel being horrendous. However, as you stop swinging your pickaxe for just a few moments to catch your breath, a work leader comes in behind you and hits you in the back of the head with his fist. He screams at you to keep working, so the team will meet their daily quota. Unknown to you at the time, but inside the North Korean camp systems, the slave laborer's entire day is measured by their quotas. These quotas, which are arbitrary production goals for how much coal can be mined, garments made, crops gathered, and so on, are all at the camp guard's complete discretion. Failure to meet quotas will result in beatings, withholding rations, or even death if done frequently enough. Because of the high stakes of meeting daily quotas, the Bawibu use work leaders to threaten, beat, and harass prisoners to get them to work harder while they watch from the side. After picking yourself back up, you continue swinging your pickaxe to get more coal out of the mine. That same scene plays out across the camp, in each person's individual hell, whether they are picking crops, logging, or working in a factory. To make up for lost time, you work particularly hard and get a lot of coal out of the mine for the next load. As the prisoners fill the cart, it's extremely overloaded and heavy. As it's pushed up the mine, one of the prisoners slips, and it runs over their foot, crushing their toes. When the guards hear their screams, they come to investigate and order them to carry the prisoner. With their crushed toes, they can't walk and they're taken to the infirmary. As you later learn that day, these so-called doctors merely amputated the person's toes with no anesthetic at all and then sent them back to the village to rest, with the order to rub salty cabbage into the wounds to prevent infection. But you don't know that now. All you know now is that you must work even harder to make your quota with one less person. After what seems like an eternity, you finally see the sun starting to set, and you know it's time to start marching back for dinner. Repeating the same several-hour process again of climbing back down the mountains, you make it to your village's cafeteria, with long wooden benches beside the tables. Each prisoner sits there to eat their meals in silence. Of course, the food is the same gruel as earlier: cold cornmeal, cabbage, and salt. As you eat your food, you notice that some of the prisoners try to dip their fingers in the soup of others that fell onto the floor or table. This causes a small fight to break out, and the guards then break it up by beating everyone at the table with sticks, fists, and rifle butts. With that, whatever is left of dinner is over, and the prisoners march back to their village. However, their day is not over yet. Once back in the village, you think you can finally relax for the evening before going to bed. But that's not the case. As you all gather in your sleeping quarters, the prisoners start to go around in a circle and ask each person what they're going to confess tonight. Confused, you ask what they're talking about. The prisoners explain that every night they have a 2-hour self-criticism session where the workers from each detail must confess perceived crimes to their guards and each other in a public forum. The prisoners must all confess a certain number of crimes each night before being allowed to sleep. If they don't, they'll all just get mercilessly beaten until someone says something. These crimes could be things like, "I worked too slow, I took a nap, I picked up some corn kernels from the ground, I walked too slow to work this morning," or something along those lines. However, prisoners know there must be a balance in these grievances. They must be believable, but not bad enough to warrant a severe beating or a death sentence. Instead, prisoners hope to receive a stern warning to work harder, or at worst a smack across the head with a baton. At tonight's self-criticism session, you confess you did not swing your pickaxe hard enough and had to be reprimanded by the work leader. One of the guards then comes up, hits you in the head with a baton, and tells you to work harder tomorrow. Thankfully, you all met your quota for coal for the day, otherwise you would have to be on punishment hours. Punishment hours mean working an extra 2 hours on top of the 12 to 14-hour shift that you already worked. Usually, punishment hours are from 10 to midnight, immediately following self-criticism. But thankfully, you get to go to bed tonight around 10 to wake up at 4 in the morning the next day for work. But you can't fall asleep because you're still hungry, and this is intentional. Living conditions. One of the many ways guards control the prisoners is through food, or the lack of it. Every prisoner inside a North Korean camp is kept just one step above starvation. Because of the lack of food, prisoners are not only constantly hungry, but irritable, weak, easily controlled, and willing to do anything for more food. A tried and true way to earn more food is to rat out fellow prisoners. Telling on fellow prisoners could be reporting that they took a nap, met with the opposite sex, or stole food. Stealing food is one of the main pastimes for prisoners. At night, after everyone is asleep, you might try to sneak out to the vegetable garden to steal radishes, cucumbers, tomatoes, and other produce from the cafeteria. If you work with animals, prisoners often try to take animal feed from the barns by sneaking a few kernels of corn. For those picking rice from the paddies, this could be secreting a few grains per bushel into your clothes. However, these activities carry a huge risk. If caught, Bawibu guards will not only beat you for these transgressions, but also take away your rations. If the offense was severe enough, this could mean a few days on half rations, or potentially as long as 3 months. With everyone so perpetually hungry, the guards use this as a motivating factor to get people to rat out fellow prisoners with the promise of more food. Because of this, trusting people inside prison becomes incredibly difficult, with almost everyone seeming out to get you to try to save themselves. However, some friendships do blossom with those willing to trust one another. Though these friendships do not look like normal ones on the outside, they are nonetheless crucial for survival. These friendships could involve going on clandestine food raids to forage for wild berries, acorns, frogs, grasshoppers, or snakes, among other things. The friendships could also involve one person helping take care of the other, since medical care in the camps is non-existent, and injured prisoners are often left to fend for themselves completely. However, these friendships are not the only potential relationships in the camp. There also could be marriage, dating, and relationships. As mentioned previously, physical contact and much less sexual contact between prisoners of the opposite sex is strictly forbidden. This is because the guards want to control any official relationships between the prisoners as a form of reward for years of hard work. So, how do these marriages work? Well, there's no rhyme or reason for what makes an individual eligible for marriage. There are some basic criteria. First, men must be at least 25 and women must be at least 23. These prisoners must also have demonstrated their loyalty over the years by consistently meeting quotas, getting few beatings, or doing favors for the guards. Once the guards have deemed a particular man or woman eligible for marriage, they then choose the marriage for the would-be couple. However, if either man or woman refuses to marry the other due to age, physical disability, or just plain not liking that person, the guards will usually honor the request. But then that person will never be eligible for marriage again. If you decide to marry one another, you can live together for 5 days. After that, you are allowed to spend up to 5 nights per year together, pending good behavior, of course. But while this might not sound like that much of a good thing, it actually greatly enhances your quality of life over the single people. This is because as a married couple, you're allowed your own private home in one of the family villages in the camp. Having your own home allows you to have more of your own things, separate rooms, and privacy. All luxuries single villages do not have. In addition to this, people who want to start families can have as many children as they want, and the guards will not take them away. But if single women get pregnant, that's an entirely different situation. As one might guess, where there is such an imbalance of power between guards and prisoners, there will inevitably be abuse. One of the most common forms of abuse in the camps is the exploitation of female inmates, particularly among younger adult females. Guards and work leaders alike continually target them. Many of the women, compelled by hunger and desperation, voluntarily submit to their desires. One of the more common ways this occurs is through being asked to clean the apartment or offices of guards or work leaders. This is essentially a euphemism for abuse. Of course, in such an environment, there could never be a situation where consent could be freely given. However, some women feel the risk is worth the reward for the extra food and lighter punishments that they might receive. But what is the risk, you might ask? While pregnancies for married women are celebrated, single women who get pregnant are given a death sentence, because guards want to hide the fact that they're abusing female prisoners. If a single woman is pregnant, she will be immediately taken away and executed at the first sign of her pregnancy. However, women are not the only people that get handed a cruel fate. It's also the children. Children and schools. For children unlucky enough to be born in or taken into this living hell, their childhood will be filled with pain and misery. From their earliest years, many infants born in North Korean camps will usually be left at home to fend for themselves while their mothers go out to work during the day. Only at night upon their return will babies be fed and cared for after crying alone on a cold floor the entire day. After surviving as a baby, these young prisoners will begin primary school around the age of 4. However, those schools are far from what you would expect a good school to be. The teachers inside these so-called schools are merely guards. The only book allowed in those schools is a Korean grammar book. No children's stories, no toys, and no games are allowed. As for instruction, young prisoners are taught the most basic math, reading, and writing skills. In fact, children are only taught to add and subtract in math. There's no such thing or need for things like multiplication or division for the work they're required to do. During class, pupils are not allowed to ask questions or speak when not spoken to. Instead, children are taught to merely learn through repetition by repeating things the guard says, and punishments are not spared for them either. One former child prisoner reported that he and his classmates received the same punishments as adults, without regard to age, which meant beatings, half rations, and worse. At recess, children are not supposed to play in the jungle gym or playground. Instead, their class leader, like a work leader, forces them to pull weeds out of the fields, hunt for mushrooms and ginseng, or perform other manual labor. After graduating from primary school, children are sent off to what's called the middle school, but it's a school in name only. Instead, these young teenagers begin working on construction projects or creating goods in the camps. Once these teens have proven they can meet ever-increasing work quotas, their graduation is the guard telling them what they'll do for the rest of their lives and being taken away by an adult work leader. But what happens if you do not want this to be the rest of your life? Escape and execution. If you're one of those prisoners who wants to escape, you would be among a select few who have done so and lived to tell the tale. Of several dozen North Koreans living in the West who have served in prison camps, only a handful have ever actually escaped one and not been released. There are several reasons for this. First of all, those camps are located in the middle of nowhere, with high mountains surrounding them on all sides, massive rivers in between, and few roads. Physically, just leaving the camps is hard enough for prisoners who are already half-starved to death and exhausted. Another reason you would find it hard to escape is the constant fear of being ratted out, because the reward for turning in prisoners plotting escape is huge. Would-be escapees cannot trust anybody. Because of this, few try, since they would basically have to risk it all by themselves. In addition to this, guards are incentivized to shoot prisoners. This is because guards who successfully kill prisoners during an escape are awarded a full-ride scholarship to a college or a university of their choice, a huge accomplishment in the class-conscious society. Because of this, guards will often bait prisoners into trying to escape with promises of food for their families or better treatment. But other times, guards will try to trick inmates into walking away from a detail for whatever reason, kill them, and then claim the reward. But even if a guard didn't lure the prisoner, the punishment for even mentioning the word escape is chilling. If you decided that you finally had enough of this place and you dreamed of returning to your life on the outside, merely suggesting you would like to escape would be grounds for arrest. Once ratted out, you would be instantly arrested along with any family members who might have been in the camp with you. Because remember, guilt by association is still a thing inside the camps too. Once at the guard shack, whether or not you really planned on escaping is immaterial at this point. Just like before, when you were arrested and sentenced on charges you never knew of, you will again be forced to sign another confession. Knowing by now that cooperating is the best defense you have affix your thumbprint on what is actually your own death warrant. But despite your cooperation in signing another confession, the guards take you to a prison inside the prison to continue torturing you. You may not understand the concept of hell, but you are literally looking at the ninth circle of it right now. All along the walls is every implement of pain imaginable. Knives, axes, pliers, car batteries with wires, cold water, chains, whips, and literal furnaces are all inside each of these torture chambers. You're suspended like an animal carcass from the ceiling by your feet. As you watch the world from upside down, you endure every horrible thing they do to you as they try to extract the names of your co-conspirators. Though you didn't have any, as you didn't actually plan to escape, you cannot stand the pain and you give them several names. That finally ends the torture, but your agony isn't done yet. As you lie in your cell, you feel a mixture of sadness, regret, humiliation, and horrible pain gush over you. You know you just condemned 3 other people to die with you. But you know that if you didn't say anything, they would have just tortured you to death inside the cell. After being allowed to lay in your own filth and infected wounds for several days, the guards order several prisoners to drag you out since they don't want to enter because of the smell. Once inside, they shackle you and another prisoner, then take you both to a van. As the van takes off, you wonder what death is like. There's no concept of God or religion here since the guards don't allow such a thing. And if you were born here, you never knew religion existed anyway. Instead, all you've ever known is to work hard and love your family. Perhaps this noble life is too pure for the blackened hearts of an evil regime. Nonetheless, this won't stop what happens next. While deep in thought, you start to notice the number of prisoners is growing with every meter traveled. This is odd, you think, since large gatherings of prisoners are strictly prohibited, since the guards think that this would be an escape attempt or a religious gathering. The only time this is allowed is for public executions, and you soon realize it's yours. Guards throw you and the other man out of the van. You don't know each other, but in this moment you're like brothers looking into each other's eyes for comfort. As the guards push you out through the crowd of inmates, they punch, kick, and slap you. While many do this to show their loyalty, some are so brainwashed as to actually hate you. But regardless of how the inmates feel, once you are dead, the guards will have each person slap or throw stones at your body, as you have done so many times before. Only this time, you're on the other end of the gun. As you go toward the 2 poles hammered into the ground, you notice pockmarks from the dozens of executions before yours. Walking up to the poles, you can't help but notice the 3 men you confessed to as co-conspirators in prison. All 3 have already been hanged on the gallows next to you, their limp bodies gently swinging in the wind. Once tied to the pole, guards do one last thing to ensure you cannot curse the regime before your death. They force rocks into your mouth to make you unable to scream or cry out right before the fatal shots are fired. As you scan the crowd looking for your loved ones, you see no one, as they've already been transferred to other camps. The firing squad of the 3 guards assembles and stands in a strict formation as the camp commandant reads out your confession. Of course, you and everyone else know it's all lies, but the administration will hold public executions from time to time to instill fear into the prisoners and remind them who's in charge. After the public reading, the commandant orders the guards to prepare their rifles and take aim. You close your eyes, happy this will all soon be over, and in a moment it is. Like hundreds of thousands of victims before you and hundreds of thousands after you, death, either through starvation, neglect, abuse, or execution, is the only way most will ever escape their suffering at the hands of this murderous regime. Now check out A Day in the Nazi Concentration Camp, or watch this video instead.